Hi, welcome to the Integral Support Pod for June. I'm Bett Bollhoefer. I'll be your host today. I'm so excited. Today we are launching the Integral Writers Support Pod, and Karen Voorhees is here. I'll be turning over to her in one moment to do an introduction and then launch this new exciting support pod from Integral Leadership in Action. Let's go over to Karen.
Bett and I are presenting together. We would like to form a support pod for integral creatives. And the first piece of this would be an integral creative writing group. Now, the idea when Bett and I talked this through is this would be for creative writing, not for academic or business or anything, but depending on who else in the integral community that we know of who's interested, this is flexible. My background is in creative writing. I'll say more of that shortly. We can expand to multiple pods if this really takes off and have different kinds of writing. But I want to get to the purpose, the passion that's driving me and Bett in particular. I think everyone here shares the passion to help our integral vision escape its lovely ghetto into the mainstream. We heard a lot about that at the Future Humans Conference. And one thing, there wasn't time for everything in 3 days. One thing that was not really represented was culture, entertainment, popular culture, high culture, culture in general, the arts. So let's address culture. And if we come up in our hopefully increasingly multiple pods for various creative integral projects, some of them may mature to the point where they escape into the larger culture and start getting larger exposure. And they don't need to be integral theory. They just need to be stories. Stories that are entertaining on the surface, but that have in their deep structure, they're integral. And so people just absorb this by osmosis. We don't have to go out preaching the word, preaching the gospel of integral. We need to understand it and we talk about it among ourselves. But if we can create works of entertainment that are integral in their deep structure, we don't need to conquer the world by teaching integral, although I'd like to do that. Gosh, Jane, I would love to see Unitarian Universalists align with Integral and Ken Wilber the way Unity Church is, and I'm in touch with Cindy Wigglesworth about that. I mean, maybe we can talk further about that another time, but that's my other passion. You use Unitarian Universalists and Integral. I'm kind of involved with that in my church here in Berkeley, but that's for another discussion. Let's see. My specific take on the integral message, we can have a glorious future. It's not too late. And this is part of my background. I'll skip a little bit. I am a housewife with a PhD. I got a PhD in cultural history, specifically the Western Middle Ages. I came of age just as women's lib was happening and looked around the world and decided I better be responsible for earning my own living because I cannot rely on doing what my mother trained me to do, which was to be a housewife and mother and, the tradition, the trad wife. So I buckled down, got my PhD, and just as I was finishing my PhD, my spiritual path, it found me. I did not find it. It found me and hit me upside the head. And I kind of got it that all this beautiful spiritual stuff that all these people had been talking about, it was for real. And I lost my passion for intellectual truth. I got it. I got it really upfront that there are levels of the good, the true, and the beautiful that far transcend the intellect, although the intellect is part of it. And so at that point, all I wanted to do was meditate and pursue my spiritual journey. And I met the man who is now my husband. He's an MD. He's retired now, but I like to say he made me an alternate job offer. So I made my living by being a housewife, meditated regularly. I've been meditating regularly for over 40 years. I've also been reading Ken Wilber since 1983. I stumbled across Up from Eden, and like everything I already knew as a cultural historian made so much more sense. So I've been reading Ken Wilber for 40 years. So I guess I can say that my cognitive operating program is thoroughly Wilberian. my cognitive operating system. So with this background, I think, and I Bett's seen this, I have a chart that shows the 6 eras, the 6 first eras of Ken Wilber's first tier. Every one of them, in every one of them, humanity tells stories. With these fancy schmancy prefrontal cortexes, we see patterns. We tell ourselves stories that make sense of those patterns. The types of stories we tell ourselves are very different in each one of the stages, the developmental stages. But one thing that is constant through everything we know about human history is that we see patterns, rightly or wrongly, we tell ourselves stories that make sense of those patterns. So this is my big thing. Let's tell some beautiful stories about a beautiful integral future on this planet. Let's tell some beautiful stories that are set in an integral world. And we can have fun doing it. Well, if we're not having fun, there won't be an audience for it. So we need to have fun as part of the prescription. Let me see, where am I on my outline? Yes, the big picture that I took away from the Future Human Conference. And thank you, Tom and Bett and Kim and all of you who worked so hard to make that conference happen. I have, let's see, well, I've told you about my disciplined academic side. Then there's the crazy visionary and the discipline and the longtime meditator and the Ken Wilber. Also the caregiver, the homemaker and caregiver. But the intuitive, the INFJ in me, the introverted intuitive sees patterns that project into the future. And with my background in cultural history and big history, I see a trajectory into the future. What we're going through now is a transition period into the next emergent world order. And these transitions from one stage to the next, when they're collective, they are periods of turbulence. We're going through a period of great turbulence right now because the next world order is already in the process of emerging, and it can be beautiful. It can still be beautiful in spite of every part of the meta crisis. And I don't want to debate global warming here. I see a beautiful future eventually. How much worse things will get before they start getting better? But if we can tell ourselves beautiful stories like Star Trek, the original Star Trek episode, when it appeared on TV in 1967, I think I was 15. I don't think we give that credit enough for what it did. At the depths of the Cold War, when we were all, in my generation, we all expected to go up in radioactive dust. That was our apocalypse story. But here comes this TV program, Wagon Trains to the Stars. And it showed a positive future, set in a distant future where the planet was at peace, people living as one, and we were exploring the galaxy. I don't think that gets enough credit for how it gave us subliminally a collective hope for the future. I would like to see stories like that come out of our insight. If we can form pods that support integral creative projects, and they don't have to be writing. I'm a writer, as I have a lot of background in writing workshops. But if we can support creative projects that have a potential, maybe someday some of them will escape into the larger culture and create and just convey our hopeful view of our potential future. So that's my passion. Let's see, I've told you about being a housewife with a PhD. I've told you about what I think the Star Trek episode does for us. And Bett and I agreed when we were meeting, I think it was just this last week, that we have so many tales of dystopian futures that I have begun to assign it in my mind as a feature of green postmodernism. Dystopian views of the future, everything's going to go to hell from here. Well, everybody, as long as we've had any kind of records of humanity, every generation has said, oh, it's all going downhill from here. No, I don't see, no. Let's tell some beautiful stories about our possible future. So I would like to see in the future, start with what I can do with Bett, what Bett and I can do, which is create a support pod for creative writing. And we can work with other kinds of writing too, but the creative writing is what I know. So we'll start with one pod, and then we'll see if we can nurture more. I will put in that I do have an integral novel in progress. Bett, are you prepared for me to toss this back to you for where this could go in the future and other kinds of support?
Before
Bett,
that, why don't we go over some logistics, just some
sure.
basic logistics. So we are going to start a integral writer support pod, and it's going to be part of ILEA. It's part of the ILEA mission, and it is going to be the second Monday of the month. Second Monday, 4 p.m., which is the same time that we are right here, but this is the third Monday. So I'll send a link in the chat. So if you want to be part of it, you can join. The first one will be July 8th. And during that first one, we'll talk about what kind of support do each of, and we can actually talk about that right now, about what kind of support we're thinking about. Really, it's just very grounded, just getting to the groundedness. And that's really what ILEA is about. It's not about the abstractions. There's enough spiral dynamics integral groups in the world that are doing the blue sky, like, everything out there, but we're really about getting action, leaders in action. How do we support each other? So that I'm going to put that out there. I'll put a link. You guys can register for the first one. Let's get a bunch of people. Let's get a bunch of people. So if you have friends who are also writers, or your sister's writing something and she's so into integral, I don't know, get her on here, whoever it is. So that's just some logistics. So second Monday of the month and the future. Okay, so let's go to the future. Integral Productions Global. All right. So you think that there's some production companies out there that are producing a certain narrative, and like there's Christian production companies, and they're pumping out Christian whatever podcasts and plays and curriculum. I don't know. They're just doing stuff. Movies. I mean, who asked for some of these Christian movies, right? Not that I'm against all that. It's fine. I grew up Calvinist. So there's these kind of companies that are producing material. So what we envision, this again is not a board approved vision, just so you guys all know, is that we can make an integral production agency company that supports playwrights and comic book makers and movie makers and novels. And, the thing is, this is what I'm always talking about, is like we're only limited by our imagination at this point. Right. So we have the internet, there's all these social media, there's short form video. We can do almost anything with our own phones nowadays. We have the ability to get out there. So all these people who are in the integral community have a bunch of cool ideas. And if we band together, one person can edit, one person can do some animation, another person can do voiceover, right? We can sort of pull together and start going and help each other level up and build better and better products. That's the big vision of where we can go one day. For now, we're just going to start with creative writing and writing. Maybe, if someone's out there just doing some writing. So we can, and then, like very concrete, someone knows an editor or someone knows a book designer, cover. Someone knows, I don't know, an agent. So that's kind of where we are. Is that what you wanted me to share, Karen?
Yes, yes, thank you.
All right, back to
In
you, Karen.
Okay, yeah. Now I do have a few projects of my own. I have not published anything yet. I have held back from pushing that because I discovered that although I really enjoy the writing, I've taken many, many, many writers' workshops and gone to conferences and publishers' boot camps and things like that. I've discovered that when I have to actually promote myself, I can do it, but I hate doing it so much that it completely dries me up. So I've just focused on my own work. And what I envision, and, Bett and I have this vision, I want to see us supporting lots of integral creatives of all kinds. And we can share with each other, support with each other. Basically, what we need from ILEA right now is all we need from ILEA right now is permission to use your name, Integral Leadership in Action. and help networking, like Beth just said. If we can, hey, does anybody know somebody who has a production company, that kind of thing. In the future, as we learn and grow, I imagine us coming back to a group like this and pitching more specific like support, like maybe find a production company, form a production company. What about distribution? What about grants? I know that Rob Smith with his integral, let's see, uh, basically his group has announced grants, and he put that announcement shortly before the Future Human Conference. I thought the timing was interesting. I did not apply because his group is more lower right in Wilbur's terms. There wasn't anything that was relevant specifically to creative projects, but there are groups out there that are looking to provide grants to possible projects. They're talent scouts. Eventually, we will be in a position with some of our creative projects to start looking for that kind of support. And at that point, Bett and I or others may come back to a presentation like this and ask for very specific support. Right now, all we're looking to do is start a writers group. So anyone here is interested, just let me or Bett know. As you said, we're meeting on July 8th, and we'll figure out what the hell we're doing. And just as a teaser, I do have a novel in progress. It's in draft 3. It's on hold right now, but I have a number of shorter pieces, some short essays, and I'm going to, let's see, put in the chat here my website that Bett's been helping me with. And if you happen to be curious about my writing, look at my website. I have 3 very short essays and 1 medium-sized one. You can look at the essay. It says, "Not at all what I expected." Will kind of tell you the background, how I came to be writing creative fiction. So let me see. Let me cast a glance at my outline. I think we may have covered all the main points. Yes, your blessing, the use of your name, maybe help networking to find a few more writers. And as we grow into later stages, we will come back to you with more specific requests for specific kinds of support. Now, I envision a healthy ecosystem of creative integral projects of all sorts, with technologies old, new, emerging. And I would love to see a corporate structure that encourages that is a fertile ground for such projects, and a corporate culture in which we all thrive by supporting each other, not by cutting each other out. And that gets into where the whole ILEA, ICON, IEC, where that whole ecology is going in the wake of the conference, which is another subject I'd love to talk to Tom and T about at some other time. But how those corporates and organizational structures shake out will probably determine how our integral creatives ecosystem meshes with the larger integral ecosystem. And who knows, if and when the support structures become sturdy enough, maybe I could start pitching my integral novel in progress to a mainstream publisher for mainstream distribution. But that's just a teaser. I'm done.
I
Beth,
highly
do you have
recommend
anything
you
to add?
I highly recommend everyone takes a look at Karen's website. I've only read these, is it 4 essays that you've published so far?
I haven't published, well, they're on the website, but I have not otherwise published them. Someday,
Well, they're
when it
published
seems
on the internet. They're extremely good and I want more. And I'm like, parent, give me more. Give me more. Okay, so we have now it's time for the discussion and idea section. So let me just clarify exactly what we're asking for. We want you to support us so this is what Victoria brought to the support pods is we're asking you to support us by coming out, registering. I just pasted in the chat. You can register yourself. You can tell your friends. You can tell your cousins, your sisters, your uncles, whoever is an integral writer or needs to be a writer. Please let them know and come out on the second Monday for the first one. Help us form this. And if you have any other ideas about how to make this successful, we're open and happy. And by the way, I run the support pods, Karen, so you don't have to ask the board. This is approved. I want 1,000 support pods, people, one for every kind of thing in the world. So Brandon's got his hand up first. We're so orderly around here. Let's go to Brandon.
Thank you. Yes. Well, a couple things come to mind. One is that you guys remember Bob Yazarian, right? He was at
Yes.
Icon. So he said he's starting a production company. It's going to be trying to bring some of these big ideas, some of these, what you can call second tier ideas in a narrative form that connects with people who are, perhaps a little more center of gravity, orange or green. So he's got a special talent for that sort of a thing.
Mm.
And so that's what he's doing. So that's and also, yeah, I have some friends who are also they're working on, creative writing along these lines. Bett, you met Kevin Harville. You remember him in from Sacramento? So he's got some cool stuff. He's some science fiction, you know, uh, imaginative type stuff that he describes as being kind of similar in certain ways to Bobby Azarian's work, but in fiction form. So there's a lot of there's some pieces of the puzzle that might be out there.
Yes. Terrific. Thanks.
This is great. I'm Googling these people right now.
Good.
Thank you,
You
Brandon.
know,
And next up, oh, sorry, go ahead, Carrie.
let me just say, yeah, comment. I was going to reach out to Bobby Azer and give him time to recover from the COVID he caught at the conference, but I was intending to reach out to him because he has charted the emergence of new orders of complexity. That was part of his presentation. It's like, I was thinking, I've got to do that someday, and he did it for me, so I don't have to. So I was going to reach out to him anyway to say, hey, would you let me use your graph? I'll give you credit. Anyway, so I will be reaching out to him. Thank
That
you.
was actually that one. Just real quick, the what you mentioned, that was uh a friend from Britain who actually came up with that, and I know him.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
cool.
What was his name? Just I'll get you his name. Just it wasn't Bobby. I remember it was
Okay,
a
but
different guy.
okay, we can pursue this separately. Thank you. That is great to know.
Huh, very exciting. I just subscribed to his Substack and I'm very, yeah, I'm just thinking of all the kind of fun topics we can have at our support pod, including how do you publish yourself nowadays? What's the pros and cons of using Substack, right? Or having your own blog like Karen has right now. All right, let's go to Ari.
Yeah,
What's up? What's on your mind right now?
yeah, a lot, honestly. Aaron, thank you so much for that. And yeah, just happy to be here in the support pod. I think it's great. Um, this is actually the reason I'm moving down to LA as opposed to being here in the Bay Area is because I'm going to live with a friend of mine, and I'm the collaborator on his music, or I'm the creative director for his music project.
Ooh.
But over the past year or so, I've gotten him more and more into integral ideas. And he's a classically trained jazz pianist and a classical composer as well. He comes from a cool lineage. His dad won like 8 Grammys doing jazz stuff. And so he has this drive to make music, but he wants to be a part of a not a political movement, but some sort of ideological movement, have the aesthetics be um, tied into some sort of cultural thing that's emerging. And I think he's feeling that integral or metamodernism could be kind of a his vehicle for that. But I'm going down there to live with him so that we can collaborate and be in the same space and have a studio in the house and make stuff. And there's things for his current projects that I think there's definitely some integral ideas being infused in there. And a lot
Mhm.
of people after his shows have come up and said they had really profound state experiences and were
Okay.
coming into because he's designed it to get people into different state experiences. And we've done 3 or 4 in-person, like a couple hundred people shows in San Francisco and LA, but we've done like I want to say 60 small in the studio sessions of maybe 5 to 10 people just in the studio and creating a really tight container. And that we've seen people like have really powerful experiences in that, like seeing their whole life flash by in their eyes, or everyone dropping into a really, really low state because it's all improv. He's playing it live on the piano, but also using electronic stuff. So that really excited me, the combination I could bring to some of the systems that I have. Like I've made archetype systems and intelligence systems and different maps of what's going on inside of us, and finding embodied ways to explore that in through music, just actually walking people through the various levels through music, right? You don't even need to say, hey, everybody, we're at red or we're at amber or whatever it is. You can just hear it, and in the music, you can just feel it, and creating a space of play where people can embody it. And you could say, hey, we're going to go through the history of humanity, but you don't have to say, and it's by this model called, you can just say, we're going to walk through the various layers that exist within us. So these are things that we're going to explore down there. And I'm also personally interested in some narrative, like some stories from the future world, maybe like a anthology series of like 10 short stories of what does it look like to give birth in an integral world? Like, what does that process look like, right? What does it look like to die in an integral world? What does it look like to get married? What is it, just these little vignettes of ceremony and ritual from a healthier world, I think could be really powerful. And one last thing, there's obviously lots of things to say, but one last thing is that if any of you guys have seen, there was a commercial for Chobani of all things, but it's spawned a movement, or like kind of an aesthetic movement, just based on this one commercial. I think the commercial is called For Alice. I could be wrong, but it shows basically an animated version of like a solar punk world. And a lot of people have like taken that little video, this Chobani video, and like made a whole aesthetic movement out of it called solar punk, which is like a regenerative lifestyle, kind of looks kind of, meshwork, integral level stuff. And so even a 4 minute, ad, a 4 minute animation can spawn a whole lot of imagination. And I think my generation is really excited about visions of the future, and we don't have a lot of great ones to look forward to that are holistic or regenerative or actually integral in any way. So something I'm very excited about.
I've learned so much,
Okay.
so many fun things, so many
Okay,
things
I
to
have to jump in
Google.
here too. Yeah. Bett
Yeah, go
and
ahead,
I,
Karen.
we were burbling about, I have a vision. See, Bett and I, a mutual friend of ours is a dancer and a singer. She's Brazilian and brilliant. And I think she's probably roughly your age. But Bett and I were imagining something at a future human conference, a future conference where we have like music that's appropriate for each stage, and just put on the music. And those of us who are dancers or old dancers just kind of move to it. And you don't have to you can sit in your chair and just move to it. And it's like, you found us the musicians for it. Anyway, so that's one of my pipe dreams for future creative projects. More embodied. I think there was a lot of call for embodied integral, and this is a beautiful, music is a beautiful way to do it. So wow, that was gorgeous. Yes, let's help spin out some possible future, some stories about beautiful futures, and then you generations coming up behind us, boomers, will start enacting them.
Very
Thank you, Ari.
nice. Yeah. All right, Tom, you're up.
So I love this idea, but Karen, I changed the wording from let's tell beautiful stories to let's tell compelling stories with integral underpinnings. And format, I like what Ari had said, because I was thinking about, um, how animation achieves two levels of dialogue. One is the plot, and then the story behind it. I think integral could fit there perfectly. And so as to ground this immediately, I would do something like, I'm publishing this right now on the Daily Costs, and they accept stories. And if you write something that's a very short story, and as a metric to measure, are you actually achieving it? how many hits is it getting? Because that's where the rubber meets the road. Is it compelling enough so that people want to feel that underlying background story? I think this is really timely. You've got to watch Jeff Saltzman and Keith Witt's review of Icon, because what they came up with is a phrase I'm playing with for 2026: integral awakening. Meaning that in my trajectory, which is as long as Dan's, I remember it was all intellectual.
Yeah.
The awakening is that this state is becoming something we all just bask in when we feel it.
Yeah.
And we just want to swim in that. And that's what makes this very timely in terms of, can we tell a compelling story that's going to transmit the message of integral? So I would start sooner than later, start writing things real quick, short, put it out there, and then critique it. Why didn't it have enough legs to really run? I wouldn't keep it at the ethereal level. We love that metaphysical speculation. Without grounding it in reality, does it appeal to the public? But that's my thoughts on a compelling storyline.
I'll let Karen respond first.
Oh, that's excellent. Skip is one of many. We'll see how many writers actually show up on July 8th, but that is a good set of exercises just to start with. Thank you.
Yeah. And okay, so let's go to Barbara. Barbara.
It strikes me to ask which public. We probably have, well, not beige, obviously, but we have 6 of them, right? And I think a lot of times we want public like us, green to second tier. And maybe we seriously should think about doing things that attract first tier to think more deeply about the problems that we have, and a better world look, better stories, and not just for people like us.
Barbara, basically, we can't just preach to the saved.
Why not?
I
The choir is really nice. They're going, oh man.
yes, they really are wonderful. They listen so respectfully and they don't ask a lot of pesky questions. All right. Yeah, I think this is the real challenge, and I like this Tom Habib's suggestion here, the Daily Coast. Like,
Mm.
I'm from the software background. I'm gonna lower my hand. Where you put it out there, it's agile. You make something, you put it out there, and you find out did it work or not. And
Mhm,
you can
mhm.
have the most beautiful theories about what's gonna work, but the thing is, did it work? Did it work? And I think this is really good to keep us grounded. And in preparation for this session today, I started writing 18 short stories. Yeah. Ari, 10 is not enough. So my inspiration is Ted Chiang, who wrote Exhalation, which is a series, an anthology of short stories, and every story is completely ridiculously sci-fi. And Arrival, the movie that came out a few years ago, is based on one of his short stories. If you haven't read his book, you should definitely. He's got 2 different anthologies, ridiculously creative. And so I wrote out 18 titles of my short stories, and now I'm going through and just pounding them out. And it's so much fun to do this stuff. Like, stop putting yourself in a box and have fun. I can't wait for our first support pod to tell you guys my progress. And I think that's another piece of this is accountability and, making progress together as a group would be very nice. But anyways, that's my little report that I am writing 18 short stories.
Ooh,
All
ooh.
right, Ari, you're up again.
Yeah, that just excited me to to write it. I was like, saying, oh, I could think of these 10 short stories. Like, I'll just write them by the time for the next support pod and show up. And I'll join you guys. I was
Lots.
initially gonna, try and find someone else, but I'll write it and I'll show up. Um, and yeah, I think what I found, the people that I've worked with, I would say are generally are at orange or green. I think green has been actually even a recent development for many of them, and many of them are at firmly at orange. And what I've seen as being pretty effective for them is maybe hijacking is the wrong word, but Orange wants to achieve and get better and improve and do things and make a name for itself. And I think
Mm,
uh, when you bring in the concept of levels or of the stages, there can be some issues there. But what I've seen they really resonate with is the intelligences and the archetypes.
Mhm.
mm,
That's actually one of the ways to start getting people to recognize that there are parts inside of us and that we aren't just one cohesive consciousness or one cohesive ego, that there are these parts that have their own logics that are non-reducible or non-complementary to each other. And the intelligences is something that everyone can get in touch with right now, kinesthetic intelligence, aesthetic
Yeah.
intelligence, practical intelligence, emotional intelligence, etc. And for an achiever, you tell them, hey, you have 7 intelligences, you could, which ones are good, which ones are bad, which ones can you shore up that, need some help, this sort of stuff. And that I've seen that being really exciting for the achiever mindset, but it's actually kind of a gateway into integral because you've already accepted now that there are these different parts of you that need to be treated on their own terms. And so it's not
Mm.
a really hard transition to, archetypes, which I in my system, we have all of them in each of us. It's not like Enneagram where we are one. The idea is that we have these different styles. And so you start to say, okay, you actually have, all men and all women have feminine archetypes within us. We have masculine archetypes within us. We have light archetypes and dark archetypes. You start getting them used to that. And then eventually the stages thing comes really naturally downstream
Mhm.
because you're already thinking about, oh, I have all these different parts of myself and I'm trying to harmonize them and integrate them into a cohesive whole, right? So the idea that, yeah, there's this level that is really excited about that and, it kind of follows naturally, but you can kind of hook them with the intelligences. So especially as we think about art and embodied things, we don't always have to talk about levels or about second tier. People just developing in their lines, developing in spiritual intelligence. I think Cindy Wigglesworth was talking about this, like, not we have a much better world if just everyone was greatly improved in their lines, not just in their stages. So just a little idea there.
that, yeah, that's really, really awesome, Ari. And it's great to hear that you're trying this stuff out and seeing what's working. And that's, I think, what these support pods are really great about. Like, what's really working? I know the diagrams are really fun. Okay, we're almost done. So, Karen, raise your hand and lowered it a bunch of times. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if there was a technical thing going on
Yeah,
there.
my computer keeps turning off the raise hand function, so I keep turning it back on quickly. Yeah, first of all, Ari, yeah, Bett and Brandon and we've been having fun with archetypes, and so we're suggesting that we try cosplaying archetypes. Maybe at the next conference, but I'm thinking for our Bay, when we're trying to revive Bay Area Integral, let's have a costume play, a cos party. Turn up, those of us who want to cosplay a favorite archetype, come and dress up like it. So anyway, we can have fun with archetypes. I think that's a terrific avenue for exploration. And Barbara, I wanted to get back to your point. I like your point. I would say my writing, I've had to train myself to not write like an academic. I've worked really hard at learning how to write prose that another human being would pay to read for entertainment. And my experience with really deep creative projects, so it's things that come from the deeper places in us, is they tell us what the story is. Now we have to work to explicate it in the world, but for the more creative parts of the writers groups. There may be some that are more technical writing or expounding ideas, but for really creative projects, my sense is to let the project um, produce produce itself and then decide what the audience is. Rather, basically, I'd turn it around and say, see what the story is, and then think what audience to aim it toward, as opposed to say, I want to write a story for such and such audience. Maybe other people can write that way, but I can't. So that would just responding to your point, Barbara, which I think is an excellent point. But it sounds like we're going to have a number of pods here pretty soon.
I want a pod for car maintenance, planting flowers, carpentry. I want a pod for everything, okay? All right, we only have 3 minutes left, and then Karen's gonna go get dental surgery, which sounds like a real good time. And so
I know how to
Barbara,
have fun.
I had
last,
to really
go
laugh
ahead.
at Ari's comment about um, doing kinesthetic intelligence. I have zero proprioceptive sense. I mean, maybe negative kinesthetic. It takes my physical therapist weeks to get me to do just one simple PT exercise because I literally can't feel it. So I just started laughing when you said that. Oh wow, you want to torture me? I think I'll hit embodied coral before I get to kinesthetic intelligence.
Barbara, I'm trying to work on you. I really am. Get you to do some yoga. All right, and that's the end of the official event. We're gonna see everyone. Okay, so next month we need, oh yes, I do. We have someone. I'm remembering now. It's coming down from the universe from my crown chakra. Andreas is going to be doing something on the July support pod, integral support pod. And so please come back. That same link that you used to get on today will be there for you next time, which is the third Monday of every month. And after that, I am looking for new people to present something that you're working on, not a nice model, but like a real thing that you're working on. So I'm hoping everyone will do that. I'm going to stop the recording. So take care, everyone. Thank you.